We got lots of special guests here with us this morning. Who do we have here, Devin?
This is Felicity.
Oh my goodness, how old is Felicity?
She just turned 1.
That's amazing. So what's it been like for you to be a mother, and Sean, what's it been like for you to be a grandfather of a granddaughter?
She's a lot like me. She has a lot of spice and a lot of energy. And yes, I'm talking about you. And she has a lot of fun.
It's been entirely awesome for me to be a grandfather and have a granddaughter. The hardest part is we don't get to see them as often as we'd like because they live in Utah and we live in Washington, but it could be much worse. They could be much farther away, and I'm really grateful for technology, which I kind of grumble about technology. It's kind of a necessary evil in my life, but Devin's been so good about FaceTiming and doing video calls.
You know, Sean, you said something I think is important for a lot of families when you talked about wondering what you don't know in your relationship with your daughter. And there's a hesitancy, I think, in families to unpack or go back and reflect on some of those stories because, for one, the stories moved on. And so they're asking, what's the point of that? And then recognizing the courage and the opportunity not to find out how bad you are, but to how much you care for your daughter, you care for your father. So I'm curious, sitting where you are now, years later, what was it like to see yourself unpacking some difficult past stories? And how has that impacted you these many years later?
It really encouraged my heart, and but it did make me think a lot about the very thing that you brought up, Aaron. Just what did I miss? What did I not know? What could I have done better as a father during Devin's childhood through having better communication and having, more of a diligence, if you will, and more of an intentionality. So like when we do employee reviews, we always try to emphasize the employee reviewing our leadership team before we review them. So I think as parents, you fall in the trap of always parenting, always leading, but not asking for feedback as much, perhaps. And so that's something I've been reflecting on.
Devin, how about you? What was that like to unpack that with your dad, but sitting where you are today?
I think that just having that time set aside is good. Just a neutral opportunity to just do something alongside and have focused time, I think was really cool.
I think it takes a lot of courage to take that step. And even as you get farther and farther away from it, you realize it actually opened up your relationship, didn't close it down. Because I think that fear is what holds a lot of people back. And it does get unique as adults to talk about it. You don't see a lack of love in the midst of pursuing one another. You actually see the opposite. You see now you're actually exposing another layer of how you can love. I'm curious what you'd say to a dad who's maybe not sure how to wade into this, or a daughter, and just encouraging them to kind of take that step towards their family.
I think just being honest and taking the time that you have together. I don't think that it's necessarily important to have deep conversations all the time, but to be open to utilizing your time wisely when you are together and being honest about where you are, where you were, and asking questions maybe about the past.
I'm taking notes here. I'm not writing them down, but these are really good suggestions. From my perspective, trying to find a footing of intentionality when you understand rightly and righteously that your daughter has left her father and mother and cleaved to her husband, and they've become one flesh, and wanting to respect that one fleshness and that family unit, trying to figure out what's my role and how do I stay engaged. Devin and I used to have a father-daughter date, like a coffee or breakfast date, semi-regularly. And then as obviously she grew and was at college, we couldn't do that anymore. And that morphed into calling her on Fridays, which I try to do every week. My point is that when she was a teenager, I had it on my calendar to intentionally engage with her on Fridays through a date or some other activity. And I'm still trying to keep that up as a grandfather and someone who lives 12 hours away.
You know, it's fun to be able to look back at the stories and see you guys together, because I also know, as my own family works, that my family is a long ways away. And just because I'm not standing with them or sitting with them or on a river with them It doesn't mean my love's less for him. It just means I'm also investing in these other people that God's put before me. And seeing this young girl on your lap there, Devan, I think it helps for me as I'm watching through a screen, the perspective of why it matters, so much. But there's an appreciation and a love that you guys have for one another, and a pursuit, and even an admission of like, hey, I could have done that better. But let's be honest too, you're doing it better. That's just as beautiful, if not more so, than having done it better. That's where God's grace seems to really come into this whole thing.
I just want to thank the whole Family Lines team. It was such an incredible experience. That's why I said gratitude is the one word that just overarchingly describes my feelings and thoughts about the whole experience. So thank you for making it all possible and for inviting us into this. And thank you, my precious daughter, for letting me do this with you. It's we've had a lot of great adventures, but it might be one of the best ones so far. There's more to come.